What's going on, Speed Squad? Welcome back to the channel. I am Connor Speed6. Today we are back on Dirt 5 to talk about all things Gymkhana. Sit back, strap in, and enjoy. Like I said, we are back in Dirt 5 talking about all things Gymkhana. Now, this game mode was presented to us by the Dirt 5 developers, not only in Playgrounds, which we talked about last week, but also in the career mode. So whenever you progress through the career mode, you will see some of these Gymkhana events come up. They're really fun, but they're also really difficult to master. Today we're going to take a look at 5 of my top tips to make you a better Gymkhana racer. But before we get into the video, please be sure to leave a like, leave a positive comment down below, and be sure to subscribe for more weekly content like this. A huge shout out today goes out to RacingGames.gg and Gfinity for partnering up with me and Codemasters for this video series. Be sure to head over to RacingGames.gg for really all things esports and racing games in general. They have daily esport news, daily sim racing news, and all sorts of tips and tricks just like this one for you at your disposal. All you have to do is head over again to RacingGames.gg and follow them across all of their social medias at RacingGames.gg or RacingGamesGG. Alright, so let's jump right into the video. Alright guys, so what I like to do first and foremost with these Gymkhana events, whether it's a dev created event or a community created event, I simply drive around the entire event looking to see, first of all, the event layout, because it really depends a lot on what I'm going to do, how I'm going to drive, where I'm going to drive, because what you want to do is make sure you have a flowing route, something that gets you in and out of obstacles smoothly and transitions to each other nicely. Here we are back on transitioning. So for example, right here, we've got this 360 skid pad, which is perfect because it's placed directly in front of this gigantic donut pad. So you can jump on here, do your 360 spin, collect those points, and you can drift out of it so you can carry that drift onto this drift pad, spin all the way around it, of course, and collect both of those points, plus any drift in between the two that you're carrying. So that is extremely important to be able to do that. Find the best route possible, the best line that connects obstacle to obstacle, and I guarantee you're going to be putting together gigantic chains. Right now, you're actually looking at a run that I put together in this car on this very route. Let's let this run for a minute and we'll come right back afterwards. Okay, the next thing on the list, which really should have been the first thing, but I kind of have this listed almost in importance. However, this could sort of go back and forth because it is extremely important in a sense that if you don't really do this, you're not going to be able to Gymkhana effectively in this game or really slide or drift in any game. What you have to do is go into your settings, go into your driving aids, and turn this stuff off. Make sure your transmission is on manual. Reason being, you can select which gear you want to be in while in, for example, a drift. The car is not going to automatically downshift into first gear or something like that, which will have you rev banging, and you're not going to be able to maintain your car's drift within its power band. Manual transmission is an absolute must if you want to do these types of drift events and Gymkhana events effectively. I can assure you, this is the first thing you need to do. Go manual transmission, really in any race game that you play. It's going to make you a better driver and especially a better drifter. Anti-lock brakes. Turn your ABS off as well, especially in this game. This isn't necessarily a gigantic issue in Dirt 5 because the car stops pretty well, especially when you're on the e-brake. But again, make sure you turn off ABS because your car is going to stop faster unless you lock up the brakes. When ABS is on, as we know, the brake calipers sort of squeeze together and it takes just a little bit longer, a few feet here and there, to get the car slowed fully. However, with ABS off, it's constant friction, but again, with the right brake pressure, you'll be able to stop much faster. Traction control and stability management, these sort of go hand in hand in my opinion. You want to make sure that both of these are turned off. Having these turned off is going to stop the car for trying to correct itself when you're trying to simply hoon it around and slide it around these vents. You want the car to be sideways. You want to be right on the edge of spinning out completely because that's the name of the game in Gymkhana. Okay, so from driving aids, we sort of jump straight into tips and tricks for driving in the game, period. Dirt 5 can be extremely tricky. It's been said throughout the community. It's extremely difficult to sort of get the hang of. The cars at times can feel a bit twitchy. What my main recommendation is, especially with these super high-powered cars, is be very easy on your counter steering. Because the big thing is, if you are in a slide, for example like this, and you counter steer, the car is automatically going to flick itself back in the opposite direction. Dirt 5 sort of has that Dirt Rally 2.0 vibe of steering, where the car sort of points itself. So if you are in a pretty decently long drift and you counter steer in the middle of that drift in any form or fashion, the car is automatically going to right itself. It's either going to drive straight or it's going to simply oversteer in the opposite direction, throwing your drift completely off and most likely putting you into a wall or another car. So what I recommend doing is simply, for example, if you're going around one of these big drift pads, don't necessarily counter steer. Get the car turned in, get the back end going around, and then just simply tap the turn in and then let the wheels go back straight. Because as soon as, again, you counter steer, the car is going to automatically flick itself to the opposite direction. So that is not what you want to happen. Make sure and keep that back end going around and then just let off of the joystick. Don't necessarily flick back and forth. That's sort of the worst thing you could do, especially when drifting, because the car will automatically right itself every time. Now, another massive tip and something that I use not only in Gymkhana but in just racing in general in this game is the e-brake. This e-brake is your best friend, especially in some of these events, because let me show you. If you're sliding and, for example, doing one of these little things here, if you hold the e-brake down, the car will rev bang. So what happens there is it gets your car up into the high RPM bands. That way the car can keep the power down. You're not going to be negatively affected by it in any way unless you hold on to it too long. So don't be afraid to, get into your little slide, feather the throttle, because throttle feathering is extremely important. And then if you feel the car sort of understeering, I guess, to the outside of your drift, get on that e-brake, because that's going to allow the car to slow itself down, but you're going to keep your car in the power band. Power band is everything, especially in these events. You want to keep the power down and readily available at all times. Hitting that e-brake gets you both of those things. Now again, feathering the throttle, like I just mentioned a minute ago, is extremely important in this game, especially with these super tight drift pads and the really big ones as well, because you're going to be in a higher gear, of course, whenever you're on the bigger pads. So yeah, get into the power band, like I said, keep your car turned in, keep the back end going, and then just simply throttle or feather up and down the trigger or the gas. That's going to keep your car in the power band without you completely just hammering on the throttle and spinning the car completely around. That's when you get those spin outs and the massive amounts of oversteer. So be careful on the throttle. Make sure to feather it. Feather means, again, just continue to keep the RPMs bouncing. That way you keep the car, again, in its power band, keeps the wheels spinning, but keeps the car sort of pointed where you want to have it pointed. Okay, so the next one would be these drift gates. This actually leads into the next one as well, but we're going to talk about just these drift gates for a quick second. A lot of people sort of think you can just sort of swing the car through there and it'll automatically just give you some points. That's absolutely not the case. If you don't hit these drift gates with speed and a slide of any kind, it will not shoot the confetti. The confetti is when you know that you've actually triggered a score on that object. Here, let me just show you what it looks like real quick. The reason those are so important to get right is actually coming up in the next little segment. We're going to talk about the best objects to get the highest skills, but make sure you're at speed and sliding completely in a drift through those drift gates or they will not count at all. All right, so this last thing, again, what I'm going to talk about is which objects get you the most points so you can build your skill, which you'll see up in the top left hand of the screen, faster and easier. So the easiest one is quite obviously the drift gate. The drift gate, again, all you have to do is slide through it. It gives you, first of all, just a basic 500 points every time you slide through it. But it also combos with your actual drift score in the middle. So a 681 plus a 500 for the drift gate. You could absolutely rack points up all day on these drift gates. It doesn't matter what size it is, whether it's a small, medium, or large, they're going to give you 500 plus your drift skill. The longer you're sliding before it and after it, the higher that score is going to be. Make sure to take full advantage of those things as much as possible. The next thing is these drift pads. These little drift pads are fantastic, and I'll show you why right here. You're getting a 360 spin score of 1,000, and it takes 2 seconds to whip your car around in a full 360 on these pads. That's a quick 1,000 points just right off the bat for just spinning your car around. If you can find one of these pads on the route that you're on, what I would recommend doing is jumping on it as quickly as possible, moving on to something else, and coming back as much as you possibly can in between moving to different objects, because again, it's super easy. It takes minimal time. It's almost, well, it's actually probably about as short as the drift gates, but you can get more on a drift gate. But yeah, these drift pads are fantastic and they're perfect for setting up little combos, which we'll talk about here in a minute. The last thing for the best ways to get skills up would be these big drift pads or donut pads. If you see right there, I just got a quick 1,830 points. You can get up to a maximum of 2,000. So what you want to do to get that 2,000 is simply make sure that you maintain a slide the entire time, because what it does is it's actually seeing how well you drifted it and scoring you on that donut. As you can see right there, I slid the entire time. I didn't get out of the drift at all. I maintained the full drift all the way around. I kept the car in its power band, which kept the wheels spinning. That in and of itself makes it a perfect donut. And the very last thing I wanted to talk about is combos. The best way to rack up a ton of points is combos. So for example, this drift pad, like I said, get yourself a quick 1,000, get out of it, get into a drift, and then go straight into this really, really big donut drift pad basically. And then find yourself your next thing, which would be that drift gate. And again, you can hop right back on this pad, get yourself another quick 1,000, and boom, just like that, I racked up 8,121 points in just about 30 seconds because it took me some time to drive back to this part of the track. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure to combo as much as possible. Again, jump quickly from one thing to the next. Get a drift going in between if possible. The one thing I don't really recommend looking for much would be these little skid, I don't even know what to call them. These little drift arms. They're just sort of a waste. I've never seen myself get anything huge out of them. And they're extremely difficult to get right because they're typically placed in tight spots or tight areas. Another big thing I recommend, again, is maintaining speed from event to event or object to object and smashing the ever-loving crap out of those boxes right there. They'll actually give you an additional bonus of 100 points every time you hit one while you're in some sort of combo. So let's see what this looks like here. We're going to hit this jump. The jump's going to be X amount of points. plus then the bonus because I hit 3 boxes. So it's the skills that I got for the jump plus however many bonus boxes I hit times 100. That's definitely something you want to take full advantage of. If there's any on your route at all, hit them, especially while you're drifting or again coming out of an object with any type of skill building. But guys, that is it for me. I really hope these tips and tricks for Gymkhana and Dirt 5 help you out. This is probably one of the more difficult events. I'm not going to talk about what my most hated event is right now. That's for another day. But Gymkhana is definitely not it. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's not fun. Get yourself in here, practice, take these tips and tricks that I've given you today and implement them the next time you jump into a Gymkhana route. I really appreciate you guys watching today. And again, another huge shout out to Codemasters, as well as everyone at Gfinity and RacingGames.gg for partnering with me on this video. We have a couple more coming up for you in this series, so be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn those notifications on, that way you never miss an upload. But that's it for me today, guys. I really appreciate you all watching. As always, I am Connor Speed 6. Until next time, much love everyone. See you soon.